Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports, and some very interesting news yesterday. Leinster announcing the signing of All Black star Jordie Barrett on a short-term contract for next season. A bit ridiculous when you think about the quality of player that Leinster currently have, and yet adding one of the best players in the world, if you to be brutally honest. And it is a very interesting move, and a lot of people have been quite critical of it. Funny enough, both Leinster and non-Leinster fans, and a lot of it sort of talking a little bit about the Irish contracting system and the kind of the what this kind of means, and whether this is sort of a bit of a symptomatic representation of what is wrong with the current Irish professional setup. But we're going to go into that in a little bit more detail in a different venue, a different video. I want to sort of focus a little bit more on this actual signing itself. Right, so in terms of the mechanics, and before we do that, please do smash the like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. The main thing is for All Black fans is that he has signed a new contract with New Zealand Rugby until the end of 2028. Which is another 4-year deal, takes him beyond the 2027 World Cup, and he will be part of the Hurricanes setup when he does return there after sort of the sabbatical. But what it does allow him to do is spend 6 months at Leinster, which he will do after his All Black commitments come to an end for the year, which will be in November after those sort of autumn internationals. And from my understanding, I mean, 6 months from December in theory takes him to about May, but I assume he'll still be able to play in June in those sort of the playoff games and the end of sort of the URC. So basically, effectively joining him for the second half of the season. And I think it's an interesting move. I think it'll be interesting to see if we start seeing more moves like this, because New Zealand Rugby are continuing with their policy of not selecting foreign-based players, but they are allowing sabbaticals, and this is basically that. So he will join Leinster for 6 months, but by the time the All Blacks play again after the autumn internationals in November, he will be once again based and playing out of New Zealand, because by then he would have finished his contract at Leinster and be back in New Zealand. So this is kind of like the wiggle room they've got. This is kind of the compromise they're willing to make. They're not going to let players sign like 2-3 year deals and be permanently based outside New Zealand and come back and play, but they will allow short-term contracts, sort of in the form of sabbaticals, so that these players can go earn more money, and yet still be available for New Zealand rugby. So, I mean, he's talked about the fact that they've got ties over there and in Dublin, stuff like that. And he said he wants to go back and meet some of the family and friends and stuff like that. But the reality, this is a financial decision. He will be on a big contract at Leinster. There's no doubt about that. It's he's not just going there for a little 6 month jolly but to go and see a couple of mates and stuff. He talks about how it's a special area for his family. Maybe that's part of it, but the main thing I think is obviously a bit of a financial boost, and then we go before he goes back to New Zealand. Now, the British and Irish Lions are going to be touring New Zealand 2029. He will be in 4 years' time. He'll be 31 years old, so 32 when the British and Irish Lions tour. So he's very much going to be, from age-wise, in contention to face them. So you can understand that this is a move which will make sense. You can get a decent short-term contract in, and then you can really focus on the 2027 World Cup, and then you can focus on the British and Irish Lions series a couple of years or a couple of years after that. So in terms of the Leinster signing, everybody's sort of wondering, well, where does he play? Now, he's such a good utility player. He can carry us 10, 12, 15. I mean, the Leinster depth is ridiculous. The current centres, for example, they are losing Ngatai, so he's kind of replacing them. But you've still got current, like, I mean, a Gary Ringrose, an Osborne, a Robbie Henshaw, for example. At fullback, you've got a Frawley, as well as a Hugo Keenan. You've got the Byrne brothers, as well as Sam Prendergast at 10. So it's childish, just the kind of depth that Leinster have. And personally, I think you look at this Leinster squad. They've just re-signed Dan Sheehan as well, and you think that this is going to be this is now going to be the time for them. They've got to now go back to the dominance they had. They've got to be looking at winning URC and Champions Cup pretty much every season, because they've got that sort of quality squad. And Jordie Barrett joining is only going to make them better. So for as much as you might be against it, as in terms of maybe him denying playing time for an Irish player, that's often the case when you ever see any sort of international player coming and playing in South Africa. Everybody's like, "Oh, do not have youngsters." I think that you overlook the value that playing next to a Jordie Barrett can bring. He brings a completely different outlook on the game. He's been coached very differently. He'll bring a different skill set. He'll bring a different experience. And I think that there's so much that the Irish players can learn from somebody like him, that I think this would be a very valuable move for everybody in and around from Jordie Barrett, you can understand why it makes sense. He's going to go to Leinster, work with, a Jacques Ninova, for example, and Leo Cullen, go and work with some world-class coaches, get a different sort of point of view, play in different conditions, experience different types of games. So in terms of making you a bit more rounded rugby player, there's no doubt that that's going to add a lot of value to him as well. But let me know what you think about the signing as well as the move down in the comments below. Please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.